I am sitting here with Mark Dolan. This is a very special day. This is an interview that should have happened a long time ago, but just things kept coming up, and we got delayed. But I'm very happy to be sitting here. Mark is a real estate professional, over 40 years into the industry, but now he's actually giving back his knowledge to those that are coming up and learning as well, but not only for real estate, but also in life in general. So, Mark, thank you very much for being here today, and kind of tell us what's going on.
Well, I enjoy the opportunity to sit down and talk with you, Brian. We've known each other for a long time.
Yeah, I say about 20 years. Yeah,
20 years, and you know, it's been a long career, 40 years plus in real estate, and it's been a long journey. And I find myself living here in just having the greatest life in the world right now.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, you work hard for those early formative years, and then kind of sit back and relax. And it is nice for someone like yourself to basically give back now. And if you read all the things you're doing, you're putting out emails, you have your own channels, you have your own social media influence. How can people reach you right up front?
Well, the project that I'm working on today is called Time Tested Mastery, Life Lessons Sell. It's a podcast, it's a coaching company, it's a professional speaking, keynote speaking company. And you can find me at Time Tested Mastery, Life Lessons Sell on social media, and my website is timetestedmastery.com.
Very good. So where did you see yourself? You started 4 years ago in real estate. Was that the first thing you did? I mean, what makes you wake up and go, you know what, I'm gonna get my license today, and go?
Well, I got into real estate by accident. I never grew up thinking that I would be in real estate. I was one of those kids that couldn't sell his way out of a cardboard box. My mom used to sell all my candy bars for me as a kid for football and things. You know, very introverted, you know, just had a real hard time talking with people. So it was a mistake, I think, or it was not expected for me to get into real estate for sure.
Okay, then
how did it happen?
Yeah, I mean, all right.
So, you know, so as a 21-year-old kid, I had a mother-in-law that had worked for a couple of real estate investors in Downey, California, and they were driving Cadillacs. They were young and good looking and seemed like they had great lives. And I thought, man, you know, I mean, there's a lot of money in real estate. So I thought, well, let me give it a shot.
Yeah. Did you think 40 that in 40 years you'll still be doing it and all the other things, or was that something else?
You know, I don't think I really had too much of a plan going into it. You know, I saw the money potential, and I was willing to work. And I think that's the key, is that I was willing to work, but I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. I started, door knocking in North Long Beach.
Oh, really? No. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, didn't do any business in North Long Beach, but I ended up moving to Big Bear and started my career in Big Bear back in 1986.
And you're door knocking. So, I mean, back 40 years ago with the internet and emails and all the other things that you had, and smartphones, of course. I mean, that's what how did you start that? Is that what they told you? Just go out and knock doors?
Well, at the time it was, in North Long Beach, it was knock on doors. And so I did that for about 6-7 months, didn't have any success there, but ended up moving up to Big Bear. And when I got to Big Bear, it was, most of the people didn't live there. So, knocking on doors wasn't really a good business plan because nobody was there. When you knocked on the door, nobody answered. So I got really good at calling on the phone. I used the telephone back in 1985, 86 and had a lot of success. I can share that with you if you want to hear it.
Sure. What, the script you talking about? Do you still know the script?
I know this. Yeah, absolutely. So 40 years ago, people had answering machines because they wanted to get the person that was calling. They wanted to know who was calling. And so I would call at dinner time. I was one of those salespeople that bothered you at dinner time. And I could make 40 to 50 contacts in 1 hour. And my script was really simple. It was, ring, ring, ring. Hello, Mr. Seller. He'd say yes. I'd say, have you sold your home in Big Bear yet? No. Have you been thinking about it? No. Thanks for your time. And I'd hang up. It was over.
Okay.
And now you might wonder, well, what the heck is that all about? Well, I got the decision maker. Yeah. They told me the truth. And if they weren't interested in what I was selling, there was really no reason to waste their time or mine. Mm-hmm. But I learned how to have fun with it. Occasionally people would say, well, who's calling? And I would say, I'm a real estate agent that works in your area in Big Bear. And they'd say, oh, okay. And they'd hang up. Or they'd say something like, well, does that real estate agent have a name? Right?
Okay.
And so then I would have a conversation.
They're asking questions now at that point. Yes. Okay, good.
So, and this is really a different approach, is that, I didn't waste anybody's time. I offered to help, and that's how I started my career, talking with people, and if they were thinking about selling, then it started off a conversation. Now that doesn't happen today with all the technology,
No.
for sure.
And people don't even answer the phones now, nor an answering machine. I mean, voicemails are, I mean, you don't really care about those, unfortunately. So you're 21, right?
21 years old.
How were the people, the other agents that had been in the industry for 40 years, responsive to you? I mean, what did they do?
Well, starting out in a small town in the mountains in Big Bear, it was sort of generally expected if you weren't around for 3 years, you really didn't exist. So that first 3 years in Big Bear, I was largely dismissed by many of the people that were in the marketplace. This was back in the mid to late 80s when yuppies was a thing, and I was not one of those kids that was destined to be a big major success. And so I had a lot more success with older grandparent type of people that would look at me sort of as their long lost son or their grandson. Wow. And so my early success wasn't based on anything that had to do with skill. It had to do everything with the kindness of the people that I was working with.
They feel bad for you?
They did.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very common for somebody, to walk into the office and look at me when I was doing my floor time, and they'd look at me and they'd sort of look over my shoulder a little bit and say, hey, is your dad here? We'd like to buy a house. They don't do that anymore, Brian.
No, yeah, I bet. Now, immediately when you got into it, though, did you maybe continue education? Did you learn more, or was it simply about just meeting people and selling homes and getting the transaction done?
Well, I think like a lot of young people, I struggled for a long time. I wasn't very teachable when I first started the business. I was willing to work hard, but I wasn't very, very teachable. And there was a moment that, was really instrumental in my career, is that I went to work for Tim Wood, who became my mentor and business partner for 10 years. And, Tim did things that were really different in our marketplace. He hired professional speakers to come in. And I'll never forget, in 1992, we were doing a sales meeting and he brought in a salesperson to train us, Bill Phillips. Not the guy that was the author of the weightlifting book, but a different guy. And at the end of the guy's presentation, he asked a question that killed me. He said, pretend I'm a seller and I'm interviewing you, Mark, and I'm interviewing you for the job of listing my home. And I want you to tell me why I should list my home with you instead of Tim Wood. And my heart sank. I mean, my heart sank.
Right.
Because, and in my mind, the answer came out, well, if you don't list your home with me, I can't earn a commission. And if I don't earn a commission, my kids won't eat.
Yeah.
That was the God's honest truth to my answer, because the truth was, knowing what I knew about my business expertise and Tim's, I would have listed with Tim myself. And that was the pivotal moment in my career that changed everything for me, because I determined, at that point, I was going to come up with a better answer. Mm-hmm. And that started a whole life of personal development and just tremendous business growth.
So for credit, Tim Wood, I mean, do other brokers do the same thing, all for all their agents?
Back at that time, it was pretty novel in our marketplace. I mean, there's some great brokers out there today. There's some that that don't do a great job like that, but anybody that is a smart broker right now is trying to find ways to get their salespeople and their agents to continue to grow, because the business is just changing all the time.
It is, yeah. Yeah, how has it matured over the years? I mean, back in 1985, is that when you started?
Started in 85.
Trying to do the math there with 40 years and 21 and all that. But how big were the documents in escrow? Like one or two pages, and now, of course, it's a book you got to sign.
Yeah. So the very first listing agreements were one page. The very first purchase agreements were one page, and it was really a lot of blank information. We actually wrote out, buyer to execute a new first trust deed in favor of seller, payable at $232 a month, amortized over 30 years, due in 5. I mean, we were writing a lot of stuff that the attorneys got in and said, no, you can't do that. So they created, 75 documents that we use today, and we just fill in the blanks.
Yeah. So the attorneys made it a lot better than I hear. That's what I'm
Right.
hearing. Yes,
Yeah.
of course. The attorneys always make things a lot better. But the mindset. So you start going. You start your career. You're still in your early 20s going forward. I mean, what did that look like to you for your goals then? And you could say, yeah, my goal was to put food on the table. You could say that. That's a legitimate answer. Versus now, or at least let's fast forward 20 years after you started. What were your goals like?
You know, there was an interesting, transition for me that, it's sort of hard to explain, going back. I look at life sort of as driving down a very foggy road. You can see about 50 feet in front of you. You can't see farther than that, but you can see the 50 feet in front of you, and you go in that direction. And as you move forward, you start to see a little bit further. And if you go another 50 feet, you can see a little bit further. And that has been sort of the story of my career, is that I would pick a direction and I would move forward to it, and then other doors would open up, and then I would choose another direction and keep going. I remember, going into the office every morning at 7 a.m. and I would sit and I would write affirmations down. Every day in every way I'm getting better and better. Every day in every way I'm getting better and better. If it's to be, it's up to me. I'm a child of God. I have a right to be here. I'm equal to the best. I mean, I can remember all those things because I needed to program, this thing right here, the mindset, to help me to be successful.
That's good. And I like the driving analogy as well. But the idea behind that whole thing is you kept moving forward.
I kept moving forward.
I mean, that's it. A lot of people say, oh, it's fog. I can't see. I'm going to stop. And then that's it. They quit. And they quit too early. And next thing you know, I mean, life passes them by. But you kept going no matter 50 feet at a time, 10 feet at a time, but you kept going, moving that direction. Yeah. And that is, I think, the biggest difference within maybe a generation now versus back in the 80s, 90s, and everything else. It's just a matter of you just continue to keep going. Yeah. So the affirmations got you through then, and that was something you continue to do today. Is that right?
I continue to do that today. I mean, there are so many things that we learn from sales trainer and motivational speakers. And I remember when I first got into the business and I would hear these ideas, I would think, that's really good, but it's good for other people. It's not really good for me. That wouldn't work for me. And I had it's called learned helplessness. When you have a traumatic childhood or you have a lot of adversity, people get into this position where they feel like they don't have the ability to succeed. And really, it's that belief that they don't have the ability to succeed that is really the driving force. I think it was Henry Ford said, there's two men. One believes he can, and the other believes he can't, and they're both right. It's their thinking that makes it so. So I had to reprogram my brain before I was able to change anything else meaningful in my life.
Take note of that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying right now, obviously everything you just said, rewind that and play that again. But doing real estate, you're buying, I mean, when normal people think of real estate, buying and selling. I'm going to sell you a house, I'm going to buy you a house for a person, transactional. But it being in the real estate industry opened you up to a lot of other things as well. I mean, you were buying, selling your own things, flipping your own houses. Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, the longer you're in the business and the more the fog clears and you can see a little bit more, one of the best ways, I think owning real estate is one of the keys to legacy wealth building in the United States for sure. It's land ownership or property ownership. I think it's 44% higher is the net worth of people that own property versus the people that don't. And so as I continued to grow as an individual and, as a salesperson, I started investing myself. And, I think over the years I've owned rental property, full-time rental property. I owned a short-term rental property for a brief period of time. One of the things that, I did with another partner, Oscar, that was really satisfying is that we would take properties that were in really lousy shape and we would do a complete remodel to put them in the kind of condition that the market wanted. And that was a fun project. I think we did 10 or 15 of them over the years. Yep. And we broke even on 2 of them, and the rest of them, we were profitable with them and improved the housing stock in Big Bear for sure.
Yeah, and that's a good, everybody benefits at that point too.
Yeah.
Go back to your one comment you just said, you redid the home to what the value was marketed, or how you said that. But and I think that's important that people understand when they're flipping houses, because they always want to say, I'm going to build the best house ever, I'm going to flip this. They put the most expensive cabinets in, the flooring is the most expensive, all those countertops.
Right.
But the market doesn't bear that, and then they realize, oh wait, so a renter comes in, depending on what you're using the house for. Either you don't get the market or what you're trying to sell it for, or a renter comes in and it just trashes the house. So I think that was important for people to understand. If you're going to flip a house, you need to talk to somebody that knows the area, knows the industry, knows that neighborhood for that matter, and what you can do for it. Because you can't just go in there and build it the way that you want to build it. You need to build it for the people that are potentially going to live there. Am I right?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So everything I do is a long story, so I apologize for that. But going back to, I had a really great client. His name was Jack Goodrich, and Jack Goodrich was building commercial strip centers and Wendy's. I mean, he was building commercial things. And I had the opportunity back in 1999 to buy a bunch of commercial property on Moon Ridge Road. And I called my friend Jack, and I said, Jack, I have the opportunity to buy all this commercial property very inexpensively. How do I make money with it? And he said, Mark, if you want to make money with that, don't buy it.
Okay.
That's what he said. And I said, well, tell me why, Jack. He said, tell me why. And he said, when I build a property, I'm building it for AAA clients, and when they sign the contract, I know they're going to pay the lease for the next 20 years. And the minute they sign the contract, I know that I've made a profit. But in your marketplace, where you have a non-AAA kind of tenant for your commercial properties, he said, you're going to have mom and pops that come and go that are going to be struggling in your marketplace. He said, if you want to make money, don't buy it. He said, do what you know how to do best. He says, you know what the good deals are on vacant lots when they come up for sale. You know who the quality builders are that are in your marketplace, and you know what the buyers are looking for in the market. So I did some research, and I went into new construction, and I found out that if I built under 1,800 square foot, the cost of development took away from profit. And if I built over 2,200 square feet, that the profit per square foot over that number didn't match. So the sweet spot was between 1,800 and 2,200. And so I started building homes for sale that were in that category, and I found out what they were looking for. They were looking for open great rooms with a kitchen, living room, dining room that was open, great fireplace. It had to have nice curb appeal from the street. So I knew what the buyers in my marketplace were buying and where the high demand was, and I figured out how to provide that to them.
And just to clarify, you said fireplace, which was a huge thing in Big Bear, which does get very cold, snows and all that stuff, and I get into the whole details of it. But yeah, you definitely want that, and second homes too, for that matter. You want to be able to go up there from your Los Angeles house or whatever down below, your desert house, to go to have a nice fireplace. So I just want to throw that in there for that. Yeah. But when I met you 20 years ago, I mean, were already a broker, I believe. I mean, but you were already a broker. So when was that point where you said, I'm done just buying and selling for my own personal clients and worrying about myself, that you wanted to worry about others and become a broker?
Oh, gosh, that was a long time ago. That was around a little after 2000. Yeah, I got my broker's license around 2000, and the motivation at the time, really was that I had worked for 3 different individuals that were brokers, and I thought I could do it better. I mean that
I'm sure you did too, for the record. Yeah.
I thought I could. I was young, and goal oriented and motivated, and I thought I could do it better. And in retrospect, I did some things better, and I did some things not
right.
better.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
There's a lot of things you don't realize until you do it yourself, and you're like, wow, no one else is going to do this for me. Hold on, I didn't realize this was all part of it. So you started going. So tell us about the process of getting going.
So I studied for my broker's license. The thing that's interesting about being a broker is that you're responsible for the people that work under you, and it's a greater responsibility. There's supposed to be greater rewards. I mean, they don't call them richer; they call them broker for a reason. So being a broker, it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes about leadership is, leadership is not a trumpet call to self-importance. It's the opportunity to serve. And as a broker, if your only motivation is to make money, don't do it. Because it's a lot harder than it looks like. And I remember, about 3 years into, being the broker and being the owner of my company, saying, I don't want another promotion. I'm done. I don't want more responsibility than I have right now.
Yeah, I've seen that for a lot of people that do. But being a broker is definitely a lot of stuff. And I'm sure a lot of late night phone calls and people have questions. And some of those questions could be very interesting, to say the least, on that aspect of it. But so you get going. I mean, did you take in, so you did it better than the others. Let's just say that. Did you start bringing in speakers and motivational things into the people? And how do they take that? I mean, and again, you got a guy, maybe you bring in an agent that signs a sign with you as a broker, and they've been doing it for maybe longer than you, or maybe at least the same amount of time. Were they accepting your suggestions to say, hey, do it my way, this will help you? Was that something? And then of course transition to the newer agents that were 21 years old starting when you were doing that. How did they take it?
Yeah, there's not one answer for that, right? I mean, no, there really is not one answer for it. One of the strengths that I have is to be able to look at a problem and try and solve the problem. And when you're dealing with individuals that are entrepreneurial, that do things their own way, there is no one size approach to it. I remember, about 10 years ago, I looked at, the agents in my office. The average age in my office was 61. Wow. The average agent in the industry was 58. And, the challenge that I was facing at the time was that the older folks that were mature in the business, they had settled into a lifestyle that they were comfortable with. Didn't matter what their level was. They were comfortable with the level that they were at. And so they weren't growing very quickly. And because our business is changing all the time, there wasn't a whole lot of growth in those more mature agents. So that, presented the challenge. On the other hand, they knew the business and they had a client base. So you had this pool of people to deal with, right?
Yep.
On the other hand, you had, young people that were trying to grow, that, were raising families, that were building careers, that were technology savvy, that they were not struggling with the new tools whatsoever, but they didn't know the business and they didn't have the client base. Right? Yep. So, as a broker looking at these two groups of people, it was like, well, which group am I going to focus on?
Wow. Yeah, that's hard.
And I focused on the younger group.
Okay.
But I also learned that they don't stick around for a long time because their mindset is they don't want to pay their dues. They want instant gratification because they grew up where you could develop an app and earn $1 million overnight, like winning a lottery ticket.
Sure. And become a YouTube sensation too, as well, and doing all that. And going viral with every video you do. Yes. I wish I knew that well, but we're not quite there yet. But anyway, that's actually probably a good segue, but I'm not going to hold on that one. But okay, so you're doing that and I agree. As you get older and you have that client base, you don't have to work as hard to door knock and make phone calls and all that stuff. Because really, honestly, and maybe your bills are paid too, and you go from making or wanting to sell 2-3 homes a month to maybe one every other month, and you're happy with that. So I saw that transition too, talking to people as far as just the basic goals. So you can't make them do stuff. That's the worst thing you could think is like, oh, you need to do this. No, they'll tell you quickly you don't need to do that.
Yeah. Well, there's an old saying. I remember a priest was asked. He said, somebody said to him, don't you get depressed that you keep bringing the good news to the people and they just don't take it? And he said, and you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And he said, my job is to make them thirsty. And as a broker, that's my job, is to help people, find that within themselves that they become thirsty and they want to grow.
That's a good one. That took me a minute. That's funny. That's a very good one. That's wow. Make you thirsty. Okay.
Yeah.
You got me on that one, actually. Honestly, I never heard that before. That's fun. All right, so transition. So now you're at a point now. You've been doing this for 40 years. and you moved. I mean, moved completely out of state, out of everywhere. Right. And what is your life now? I mean, are you still active with those kind of things? Or what's going on in your life now?
Yeah. So so what I'm doing with real estate is I am consulting and managing and coaching agents that are still in the old marketplace in Big Bear Lake, California. And I've expanded what I'm doing into this new project, Time Tested Mastery Life Lessons Sell. And the whole purpose of it is that I realized that when I started out 40 years ago, there were things that I didn't know about the business. And I'm grateful for the mentors and the people all along the way that taught that information to me. And Time Tested Mastery is my way to share that information back with other people.
Okay. And what do you focus on that as far as that? I mean, the all-around thing of real estate, or is it more to his leadership as well? And what are you trying to accomplish?
Well, my expertise is in the real estate business, so that that's where the primary message is being focused, is to real estate people that want to not be in the business, but they want to become, have a legacy in the industry. They they want to build a profitable business. They want to manifest their success through the real estate business. That's who the target message goes to. But all of the principles, they're principles. They're time-tested principles that work for all people. One of my favorite sayings, every time I get up in front of people and talk to them as a group, is I say, the things that make you successful in real estate are the same exact skills that make you successful at life. The ability to delay gratification, the willingness to give before you demand something in return, having great communication skills and listening skills. All of the things that make you successful as a human being are the same things that make you successful in real estate. So it sort of goes along all of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in any industry, and I say industry, not just a job, but an industry, if you want to build your career and build yourself as well, you take those things and maybe, he's talking about real estate, but he's also talking about this certain concept, and you just kind of apply it and move it towards your thing as well. Yeah. So where is your overall plan with the goal? I mean, are you going to continue? Do you go talk to people as well? I mean, in live persons or just interviews online? What are you planning on doing with that?
Well, my favorite thing in the whole world, that means so much to me, is to stand up in front of a group of people that are hungry, that are open-minded, that want to learn, that have a direction that they want to go, where I can share information with them. So, speaking in front of groups of people is, that's where my heart is. Yeah. Several years ago I'd gone to Toastmasters, and one of my friends, I remember sharing with, his name is Rick Potter, and I said, Rick, I love speaking in front of groups of people. There's nothing that feels better than getting up. There's just this zone that I get into, and I said, it feels so good. I says, I can't imagine getting paid to do that. And he looked at me and he says, Mark, that's why you don't get paid for public speaking. It's because you can't imagine. So, yeah. Here I am in this time-tested mastery journey, developing the ability to speak in front of groups of people, which requires, starting over. So yeah. Here I'm at the age of 62, starting over with a speaking business.
Yep. Yeah. Well, okay, at the age of 62 and being a professional, not only 40 years in real estate, but also doing time-tested mastery as well, do you think you know everything?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I have learned more in the last 12 months working on this new project than I learned in the last 5 years. I'm telling you the truth. And I also realize that I know a lot less than what I need to know in order to be successful with what I'm doing. So I'm learning every day.
Now, who are you watching people now? Or are you still reading, and it's just basically educating yourself?
Yeah, I surround myself with people. Jim Rohn talks about this phrase, who am I around? Who am I around? What do they got me doing? What do they got me thinking? What do they got me reading? What do they got me believing? And the big question is that okay? Is that okay? And so I'm surrounding myself, I'm involved with a group called Blue Talks, which is a public speaking bureau. I'm involved with them and some training with them, interacting with, with thought leaders, through the company. And, if you have the time, I'll share with you what I think is really important for my success today, which is my 90 minutes to mastery.
Right now?
90 minutes to master every single morning, and I've done this for the last 14 years, is I wake up in the morning and I spend time reading information that is good for my soul, that is leadership oriented, things that I'm working on. I spend time journaling. I write 3 pages every day in a journal. I got that from Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, about 25 years ago, and so I've adopted that practice. I have some quiet time with prayer and meditation. And so at the end of that 90 minutes, I am so grounded in what I'm trying to accomplish. I have a great relationship with myself and with my Creator, with my God. And the rest of the day is fueled by what I'm putting into that 90 minutes every day. And I think that's the key to my success. I've missed less than 10 days in the last 14 years of that process.
So let's slow down there. So the argument is, hey, 90 minutes a day, I don't have 10 minutes to myself. Why should I bother taking that 90 minutes? I mean, and do you have to start with 90 minutes if you have young kids and all that stuff? And what's your advice to people that say, you know, I got a job, I got multiple kids, I got softball practice, I got soccer practice, I got this. What do you tell them?
Well, you know, what I would share with people is don't start with 90 minutes a day, because if you do 90 minutes for 2 days and quit, it won't do you any good. Okay. I mean, you can start with 5 minutes or you can start with 10 minutes. But, you know, the message here is once you get started, you can grow. You know, it's something that you can plant a seed and you can water and nurture and have it grow. I mean, each of us is the most valuable player in our life. You know, if it's to be, it's up to me. If it's to be, it's up to you. And there's no greater investment that you can make is in your own personal development. Nobody can take that away from you. So start with 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, and see if it works for you and let it grow. It doesn't have to be 90 minutes. A lot of people do it in an hour.
I think it comes back to that thing of set your goals, and if it's a foggy day and you're driving, it's a 50 feet in front of you, that's all you can see, then do the 50 feet. You know, then 50 feet will turn into 75, will turn into 100, and you can just continue driving down the road and continue moving forward. And I think that's the important part with people. I mean, even if you take your schedule, you said meditation, the 3 pages in your journaling, and the different steps you do in the 90 minutes, maybe someone just says, you know what, I'm just going to do 1 page today. I'm just going to do 2. You know, and next week, next month, you figure, hey, I'm going to do 3. Or then they switch it into, hey, I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just set that goal of how long you're going to do it for. And at that point, you keep moving forward on that one. And I think that's the important thing. And then you realize what it means to you internally and how you start seeing your success. Now, again, success is not overnight. You're not going to do meditation today or even for the first week for 10, 20 minutes and then all of a sudden have this magical success. You're not going to do that. It is a base-to-base thing where you're building on top of things. So that's why I think education and learning is just, it's not my saying, it's an old saying, but it's about bathing. It's the same thing as bathing. You know, you can't bathe one time for the rest of your life. You have to continue bathing and cleaning yourself. So you're educating and learning so that therefore you can get better and better as you go along down the road. And I think that is huge. But you do a lot of good things too. And not only do you do your channels and your interviews, but you're also writing emails as well. And so people can see it in the format of reading, which helps for people that are busy, that maybe I can't read or I can't listen to a whole interview for a while. I can just read that. So if you're interested in getting on the email list, how do you do that?
So go to Time Tested Mastery Life Lessons Cell, or timetestedmastery.com is the website that you can go to. If you sign up, you will get automatically added to my email list, but you can also see and read my blog there. You can also watch some of my YouTube episodes that are there as well, and sort of get a feel for what we're doing there.
Now, are you only on YouTube or other social medias?
I am on Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn, so you can find me at Time Tested Mastery on all of those channels, as well as YouTube. Okay.
Good. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. And again, you don't have to watch all the videos at once, piece by piece, little by little, but move forward on that one. So what advice would you give for any professional, real estate or whatever, any sales job? Let's pigeonhole to a sales job. They're 21 years old. They're just starting off. They get handed, now it's not a phone book, but I'll use the term of you get handed a phone book. What would you tell that person for advice?
Well, you're in for a long ride.
50 feet, right? 50 feet, foggy road.
Yeah, and I am working with a lot of agents that are newer to the business, and what I share with them is that this is a marathon. It is not a sprint. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And one of the things that I teach is to have a 6-hour workday. Which is, you can go to timetestedmastery.com and listen to that episode. So I won't have to go into that. But it goes back into is that if you work 12 hours a day for 3 days and quit, you're not going to succeed. But if you work 6 hours a day for 20 years, magical things are going to happen. In fact, one of the agents that I work with, I asked her, what's the most important thing that you ever learned from me? And she said, it's the power of consistency. She said, even if I make 3 calls a day instead of 25, I just need to make 3 calls every single day and keep doing it over and over and over again. So consistency is the key.
So I'll ask you, was it worth it? Would you do it again?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm still doing it.
Yeah, that is true.
That's the key.
That is true.
I'm
He's
still
not
doing
retired.
it.
Yes, for the record, he's still doing it. Yes, he's still doing real estate. You're still selling homes. Yes, yep. So don't forget that if you want to look up him too as well.
And I'm still learning every day and experimenting and trying things.
Yeah, and that's the key. I don't care how old you are, or 40 years or 62 years old. It doesn't matter. I mean, you continue learning and continue moving forward down that road, that foggy road, like you said. Yeah. So I mean, a lot of realtors I listen to, they're like, oh, don't do real estate. Don't do sales. It's horrible. Do something else. I mean, what else is there? I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, I've been in sales for 23 years now, since 2001. And I look back at what I wanted to do growing up, and then I realized like that just didn't happen for various reasons. And then I'm realizing like, what else would I have done at that point? And it all brings you to a certain thing. And right now, the certain thing is we're sitting in front of a pool in front of your beautiful house, and all those great things going forward. But and I think it comes down to myself with this interview on this side of the chair, knowing the people and just talking to people and continuously learning from people as well. Because I can read books and I can do all that stuff, but I think having conversations is probably the best way to do things, and listen to the people. Because you can read certain things, but the idea is you hear the emotions and the way that the things that people portray and come out. And I like that for a point of it. And I apologize for my eyes, because basically this sitting outside in the sun was probably the bad idea. Let's put it this way. I hope you're turned a little bit. So
I got it better than you do.
Yeah, for future, I'm going to be like, I'm going to rewrite this. And like, man, he couldn't see anything. So, but again, you're always learning, and now we're learning how to do a better interview. But we're having a good time with it, and I think that's the important stuff. My daughter's young. I was just with her over the weekend. She is in college, doing masterful things, and I keep telling her, like, talk to everybody. Remember people's names. Go out there, and you never know where you meet one person one time now, and then 5 years down the road, and you see them again, and if you remember their name, or at least the conversation you had where you met them, that opens the doors for a lot of people. And of course, at that point too, in 5 years, maybe someone wants to sell their house that they have, and they remember this guy who called them that reminded them of their son or their daughter or their grandchild, and was like, I want to list with that agent. And so that's the key too, the consistency you were talking about, always getting in front of people and just doing the same thing. So do you tell people the same script since have you been using the same script for 40 years?
Oh, no, it changes all the time. I mean, you've got to, that's part of, there is no arriving. There's always learning. There's no arriving. I mean, if there's any one thing that I would share with people, I think this is the most important message, is that sales is a very honorable skill. I mean, it has a bad connotation, in our society today, and the only reason that is because there's really lousy salespeople out there. But when you're dealing with somebody that has both the ethical and moral desire to be helpful and to have a servant's heart, and they have the skills in order to make it work, you don't even know that you're being sold because they're actually helpful to you. It's a very honorable profession. And the other thing is that you can learn it, because I was I was the kid that couldn't sell candy bars. And so what I'm sharing with you is that if you want to have an honorable, career in sales, you can learn the skills, and that's what Time Tested Mastery is about.
Yeah. So basically, no matter where you're at in life, no matter what mentality you currently have or skills that you have, you can always improve and become better at whatever you want to become better at. And that's the important thing. And you do that by listening to podcasts, listening to reading blogs, reading emails, and that kind of thing, and going to time tester mastery at that point. So any closing thoughts you want to talk about? Any words of last advice?
Well, if this has been helpful for you, I'm grateful for that. If you think it could be helpful to somebody else, please share it with them and, support what you're doing. I love what you're doing with your interviews. I'm meeting a lot of very diverse people through your podcast, and it's a pleasure to be sitting here with you today.
Very good, very good. Well, I appreciate it. Yes, if you did like this, then basically like and subscribe as well. Hit the button, do all the things. Make sure you share it with the people. And Mark, I really appreciate it because again, I've known you for 20-something years. I was 20 again. I've only been in the industry for 23 years. So right in the beginning of my career, I knew that you were the leadership thing. I've been to a bunch of your sales meetings and things. You allowed me to speak at some of them as well for my industry. And I think I would be like, I remember one meeting in particular, I went to this meeting to give a presentation on my industry. And I was done. I sat back down and I think Mark was like, you can go ahead and leave now. And I'm like, nope, I want to learn more from you. I want to hear. He's like, well, it's about real estate. Fantastic. I'm going to learn and I'm going to benchmark that for my industry there. And that's what you do. You just take in as much information as you can. So anyway, I appreciate you watching this. This has been Truth Between Lines, and this has been a fantastic side. So Mark Dolan, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Between the lines.